We're diving headfirst today into something so incredibly common you probably just used one, the humble shopping cart.
Uh-huh.
But trust me, there's a fascinating story behind those sometimes squeaky wheels.
Absolutely. That seemingly simple part is actually, well, it's a powerful tool for understanding the sprawling world of global consumerism.
Right. And our roadmap for this exploration comes from Andrew Warren's insightful book, How the Shopping Cart Explains Global Consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
Think of this as your shortcut to understanding how this everyday invention has reshaped not just how we shop, but society itself, and
Yeah.
even, what we want.
Yeah,
Get ready for some surprising connections, because this isn't just about groceries.
exactly. It's easy to take the shopping cart for granted, isn't it?
Totally.
But its journey from like a novel idea to this ubiquitous object is a really compelling narrative.
Okay, so let's set the stage then.
Yeah.
Imagine shopping before the cart. What was that experience actually like?
Well, it was a very different world. Like Elizabeth Gaskell showed in Sylvia's Lovers, your local grocer often played a really significant role.
How so?
They controlled access to goods, offered credit, really guided your purchases. There was a strong personal interaction there.
So no, just casually browsing the aisles like we do.
Not really, no. Not in the way we know it.
Oh.
But then towards the end of the 19th century, you start seeing department stores pop up,
Ah, okay.
like the Fair in Chicago, which Theodore Dreiser wrote about in Sister Carrie. These places started giving customers new freedom
Freedom to do what?
to wander around, to actually touch the merchandise. The whole relationship between the shopper and the product began to change.
Interesting.
It was a move toward what's been called unencumbered and non-directional mobility within the store.
Okay, non-directional, so just wandering wherever.
Kind of, yeah. This idea of a more independent shopping experience was starting to take root, and you begin to see the early signs of self-service appearing. Packaging and branding became way more important for attracting customers directly.
Because the clerk wasn't mediating anymore.
Exactly. Think of, like, Alpha Beta Store's memorable slogans or Kellogg's advertising getting more engaging, really speaking directly to the consumer. The act of physically seeing and maybe touching the product became more central.
And then we get to Piggly Wiggly. That name always sticks in your head, doesn't it? Tell us about Clarence Saunders and his vision for a self-serving store.
Clarence Saunders was truly a pioneer. He actually patented the concept of a self-serving store way back in 1917.
Wow, 1917?
Yeah. He pictured open shelves, fixed prices, and a store layout specifically designed for maximum convenience. His whole aim was to encourage what he called impulse purchases.
By letting people grab stuff themselves.
Precisely. Letting customers have direct access to the goods. His 1917 patent even went into detail about, like, self-closing fridge hinges, a real focus on the shopper's experience and flow. You can see this planned flow in his original patent drawings.
That sounds incredibly forward-thinking for the time. Really modern, almost.
It was, but there were some blind spots in his vision.
Oh, like what?
Well, Saunders' ideal customer was very much the stereotypical white housewife of that era.
Ah, okay.
His advertising often showed these solitary women happily picking things off perfectly organized shelves, buying for their families.
Right.
And while he did make some efforts to reach a broader audience, this pretty narrow focus did limit his ability to fully tap into the potential of self-service.
How so?
He couldn't maybe connect with more diverse shoppers or fully explore different models like high-volume discount selling. He was really aiming for a very specific kind of bright, efficient, sanitized shopping experience.
So maybe missed some opportunities there.
Perhaps. But that shift in control from the clerk to the shopper that fundamentally altered our relationship with buying itself, that was huge.
Okay, so we've got these self-service stores emerging, but shoppers are still limited by what they can physically carry in their hands, or maybe a small basket. That must have created a bottleneck, right?
Exactly right. Sylvan and Goldman, who owned the Standard and Humpty Dumpty grocery store chains in Oklahoma, he observed this directly.
What did he see?
He saw that women, especially, would stop shopping once their handheld baskets became too full or just too heavy.
Makes sense.
Yeah, there was a clear physical limit to how much anyone could buy in a single trip back then.
So, necessity being the mother of invention, as they say.
Yeah.
How did the shopping cart actually come about? Did Goldman just invent it?
Well, Goldman, working with one of his employees, Fred W. Young, started experimenting around 1936.
Okay.
Their first ideas involved sticking wheels like casters onto baskets. They even play around with folding chairs, trying to figure out a way to carry more.
Folding chairs.
Really? Apparently so. It's also worth noting that Weingarten's, which was a grocery chain down in Texas, had tried something similar with wheeled carriers way back in the 1910s.
Oh, interesting. So Goldman wasn't strictly the first.
Not with the basic idea of wheels, maybe, but Weingarten's version didn't really catch on.
So what made Goldman's attempt successful where Weingarten's maybe hadn't been?
Well, several factors, I think. For one, Goldman was really persistent. He famously hired people, just regular folks, as in-store demonstrators
To do what?
to push these new contraptions, which some customers apparently called wheeled monsters, around the store.
Huh. Wheeled monsters.
Yeah, they'd fill them up with groceries just to show other shoppers how it worked, make it look normal.
Did it work right away?
Not exactly. Initially, customer reaction was pretty mixed. Some men apparently thought it was, unmanly to push a cart.
Seriously.
That's the story. And women sometimes used the lower basket, which was part of the early design, for their children instead of more groceries.
Oh, like a makeshift stroller? Unexpected?
Totally unexpected use case. And what's fascinating here is that the cart occupied this kind of middle ground.
I mean,
It was owned by the store, right, but used by the customer. This type of object is sometimes called a boundary object.
a boundary object.
Yeah, essentially it's something that exists in multiple social worlds and has different meanings for each group. So here, the cart belongs to the grocer, but it's the customer's tool.
Interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and maybe that contributed to the initial hesitation or confusion around it. Also, trade publications like Progressive Grocer were initially quite silent about it. It wasn't immediately hailed as revolutionary everywhere.
And perceptions of the invention itself differ too, right?
Right. Goldman presented his cart almost as a revelation, this brilliant idea he had, whereas someone like Saunders tended to emphasize the improvements he made to the existing store model.
I see.
And later on, Piggly Wiggly was often credited as the first self-service business, which kind of overshadowed Goldman's specific contribution with the cart itself for a while.
But those early Goldman carts, they weren't exactly the neat nesting models we see everywhere today, were they? They must have been awkward to store.
Oh, absolutely not. They were bulky. That's where Orla E. Watson's 1946 telescoping cart design was the real game changer.
Okay, Watson, what did he do?
He added a hinged gate, like a swinging back panel, to the baskets.
And that allowed them to
nest together. One cart could slide partially inside the one in front, dramatically simplified storage and deployment.
That makes sense. Huge difference.
Massive. This seemingly small change shifted a lot of the labor of managing carts from store employees directly to the customers, grabbing one on their way in. And it really optimized the flow of goods through the store.
You can really see the cleverness in his designs, like the 1946 telescope cart drawing on letterhead, or that new telescope cart ad from '49.
Exactly. They really pushed the space and labor-saving benefits. That nesting feature was key.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. How did this seemingly simple invention, the nesting shopping cart, really pour fuel on the fire of consumer culture, especially after World War II?
Well, the timing was absolutely crucial. You have the post-war economic boom.
Right. Suburbs popping up everywhere.
Exactly. The rise of car culture, people moving out of cities, needing to drive to stores. This created this powerful combination, this sort of couplet.
A couplet.
Yeah, of the non-directional supermarket where you could wander and the vast parking lot outside.
The store and the parking lot designed for the car.
Precisely. And the cart essentially became the indoor version of the car.
Okay, explain that.
It made those bigger, maybe less frequent shopping trips much more feasible.
Yeah.
You could buy more in one go because you could wheel it out to your car. It aligned perfectly with this new car-centric lifestyle.
They were almost designed for each other, the car and the cart.
In a way, yes. Think about the perspective of someone like Bruno Latour. He viewed supermarkets almost as plugins.
Plugins.
Yeah, with a bewildering array of devices, the cart being a key one, that subtly shape our consumer behaviors. They sort of guide us.
And maybe lead to a kind of uniformity. Everyone pushing the same cart down similar aisles.
That's part of his point, yeah. That these elements of the supermarket, the cart, the layout, they almost plug into our desires and behaviors, gently guiding our choices, maybe reducing individual variation.
And the sheer amount of stuff available in these supermarkets must have played a huge role too.
Oh, absolutely. You had this massive increase in agricultural production after the war.
Like what?
Especially staples like wheat and sugarcane. Huge increases. And the food industry was actively trying to create demand, pushing for what we can call volumetric consumption.
Volumetric, meaning just More volume, buying more stuff.
Exactly. Bigger packages, buy one, get one free, filling up that cart. The cart provided the necessary capacity to carry all that abundance home.
Right.
It's interesting here to contrast someone like Michael Cullen, who started King Cullen's supermarkets.
King Cullen.
Yeah.
What was his approach?
His focus was ruthlessly on rock-bottom prices and high volumes. Big, basic stores, lots of parking, just pile it high and sell it cheap.
Less focus on the experience.
Much less than some competitors who were still trying to maintain a more upscale, refined shopping atmosphere. Cullen was all about volume, facilitated by, you guessed it, the shopping cart.
So the cart wasn't just an American thing, was it? You mentioned global consumerism. It must have spread.
Oh, it definitely did. Despite what someone like Milton Friedman apparently thought that it was essentially unpatentable, too simple an idea.
Huh, really?
Yeah, but the shopping cart became a really fundamental piece in the globalization of consumerism after 1945.
Even though it wasn't maybe as flashy as, say, rock and roll or Hollywood movies.
Exactly. It might not have had the same kind of cultural fanfare, but its sheer practicality made it incredibly adaptable. Local businesses all over the world readily adopted it. Often they just added their own logos to standard cart designs.
Can you give us a couple of examples of the cart's journey around the world? Any interesting encounters?
Yeah, there's some really interesting anecdotes. Take Nikita Khrushchev's visit to a U.S. supermarket back in 1959.
The Soviet premier in a supermarket.
Yes, and he was reportedly quite taken aback, maybe even bewildered by the sheer size of the portions and the variety of goods available, the abundance facilitated by the cart system.
Wow. What else?
Or, on a different note, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip apparently made an unexpected visit to a supermarket once.
The Queen pushing a cart.
Maybe not pushing one, but they were apparently very curious about the shopping habits of everyday people, asking questions about what people buy. It just shows the cart and the environment it created becoming this noteworthy phenomenon.
So it kind of transcended politics.
In a way, yes. Its very simplicity and utility allowed it to cross Cold War boundaries. There were even plans, apparently, to exhibit it in Yugoslavia.
Really?
And it was later introduced in the Soviet Union as part of their Red Plenty initiative, trying to boost consumer goods availability.
That's fascinating. So beyond just being adopted, did the cart's introduction have similar impacts everywhere? Or were there unique local twists?
That's a really interesting question to dig into further, the specific local adaptations and consequences. But the basic model certainly spread.
It's amazing how something so functional could navigate such different cultural and political landscapes.
And designers noticed its power, too. Walter Landor, the famous brand designer, did work in supermarkets aiming to create what he called an always moving and always inviting cart.
Always moving.
Yeah.
Like encouraging constant shopping.
Pretty much. Further cementing its role in encouraging continuous consumption, directing shoppers towards the checkout, really optimizing that flow of both goods and people through the space.
This is really making me see shopping carts in a completely new light. It's not just metal and wheels.
Not at all.
How has this seemingly ordinary object been reflected in, say, literature or cultural commentary? Has it become a symbol?
Oh, definitely. It's fascinating, actually. The shopping cart has taken on some powerful symbolic meanings in various literary works.
Like where?
Well, think about Cormac McCarthy's The Road. Those abandoned shopping carts littering the landscape. They serve as these stark, silent reminders of the complete collapse of consumer society.
Right, the remnants of what used to be.
Exactly. And in that bleak world, even finding a single can of Coca-Cola, something you'd casually toss in a cart before, becomes this incredibly significant event, a fleeting touchstone to the past.
Wow. Any other examples?
Don DeLillo's Americana or Stanley Elkin's The Franchiser. In those novels, supermarkets and their carts often become symbols of the increasing homogenization of American culture. Everything looking the same, everyone buying the same things.
The supermarket as a symbol of conformity.
Kind of, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And John Gardner, in his novel Grendel, uses the metaphor of King Hrothgar constantly building roads, expanding his reach.
How does that connect?
Well, Worms draws a parallel there to the expansionist nature of capitalism and consumerism itself. Those roads are like the supply chains, the infrastructure that ultimately leads to our shopping carts being filled.
So it's gone from just a practical tool to a literary symbol of consumerism itself, good and bad.
Exactly. And that connects to ideas from thinkers like Raymond Williams. He talked about the difference between consumers and users.
Consumers versus users.
Yeah, he argued that the modern emphasis shifts us towards seeing ourselves primarily as consumers, people who buy and use up what industry produces.
Rather than just users of things we actually need.
Kind of. And he associated this shift partly with the crude hand-to-mouth patterns he linked to the shopping cart, this constant cycle of acquiring and discarding, facilitated by the cart's capacity.
And that capacity, that ability of the cart to hold more and more.
Yeah.
You mentioned volumetric consumption. That has consequences.
Huge consequences. It's directly linked to the environmental impact of mass consumption. Things like the massive amount of nitrogen extraction for fertilizers to grow all that food,
Okay.
or deforestation for packaging or grazing land, and of course, the mountains of plastic waste we generate, much of which once sat in a shopping cart.
So when you think about your own last trip to the grocery store, did you ever consider the journey that humble cart has taken or the impact of filling it?
Probably not often enough.
The cart, the enabler is so much.
Yeah.
Convenience, but also maybe excess.
It really presents a paradox, doesn't it? It was created as a solution how to carry more groceries.
Right.
But it arguably contributed to a new problem, overconsumption, and all its related issues.
It's like that animated film Wall-E.
Oh, absolutely. That can definitely be seen as a cautionary tale. You have these humans who are totally reliant on these cart-like mobility devices.
They just float around.
And they've regressed, really, to this state of almost infantile dependence, completely passive consumers. It's a pretty stark image.
So looking ahead, do you think the supermarket of the future might exist without the traditional cart? Maybe focusing more on health or sustainability?
It's possible. People imagine different models, maybe more delivery or smaller stores. But it's really important, I think, that we don't just focus on changing individual consumption habits, like what we put in our cart, or even getting rid of the cart.
Without addressing the bigger picture.
Exactly, without also tackling the underlying extraction model of our current economic system, the system that demands that constant growth and volume in the first place.
This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. It really is remarkable how this seemingly simple object, the shopping cart, provides such a powerful lens.
Yeah.
A lens to understand the evolution of retail, the rise of consumer culture, and its profound impact on our lives and, frankly, our planet.
Absolutely. It really makes you think about the hidden stories, the hidden histories behind the objects we use every single day without a second thought.
So as we metaphorically park our shopping carts for today, let's leave you, the listener, with this thought. Even if the physical cart were to disappear from our stores tomorrow, the underlying drivers of that volumetric consumption and that really complex interplay between our desires, convenience, and the consequences, those things remain, don't they?
They certainly do.
So what other seemingly simple objects in your daily life might hold similarly complex and revealing stories? Maybe consider the ripple effect, the sort of domino impact of your own consumption patterns. You might be surprised by what you discover.